That Great Business Show, Ireland's best business podcast.
Welcome to episode 125 of That Great Business Show, posting on the 3rd of February 2023. Fáilte, I am Conal O'Moran. We bring you 45 minutes of business tips, insights and opportunities thanks to donedeal.ie, where you'll find your next car, new or second-hand. Coming up, a new startup wants to sell your data on your behalf for a profit. And another startup we found has a newer way of helping you lose the kilos and, most importantly, keep them off. Our business tips and insights are brought to you thanks to our sponsor, DoneDeal Motors, the only place to go for your new or second-hand motor, all from the convenience of your couch. And I know you know it, but you heard Jason Bradshaw on episode 124 telling you that if you try to sell your business without an e-commerce capability, the price you get is going to suffer. So, if you are getting around to taking our advice and getting some e-commerce presence for your business, then do check out our big supporter, Big Red Web, who can do it all for you in a jiffy. Tell Bossman, Mark O'Dwyer, Team GBS sent you, and also make sure to log on to our website, thatgreatbusinessshow.com, and sign up for the email updates, because we will be starting to do some really interesting things now. We have updated a lot of things on the show in the last week or two. So sign up to email updates on the website, please.
DoneDeal Motors is home to Ireland's largest range of new and premium used cars. That's why you'll find cars from Audi and BMW dealerships on DoneDeal. Are you looking for a 7-seater to accommodate your growing family? Maybe you're after a luxury saloon to make a statement. We have the car for you. You'll also find Ireland's largest range of electric cars to help you make the switch. Visit donedeal.ie today to start the search for your next car.
Viscosity. When you shave, you want the highest viscosity because it helps the blade run smoother. De facto, the world's best shaving oil, has incredible viscosity. That's why De facto leaves your face, underarms or legs nick-free. Higher viscosity makes blades last longer. De facto is the best for your skin and your pocket. DeFactoShave.com.
All That Great Business Show advertisers are Team GBS approved. Back them.
As we post this episode, that's episode 125, we have left the new year in the dust, and with it, probably all those great resolutions about eating, fitness, exercise, etc. And that is why we have Dr. Harriet Treacy joining Team GBS today. If you are one of the thousands who have tried and failed to lose weight, well, keep listening, because medical doctor Harriet says the outdated approach of eat less, move more is just that. It's outdated. Her startup, BeyondBMI, has already raised over €500,000 for her medically led platform to tackle obesity. Harriet's team has developed a 12-month weight management program using the latest scientific research and therapies to create individually tailored treatment plans for clients. Dr. Harriet Treacy, welcome to That Great Business Show.
Thanks for having me. Really excited to chat all things obesity and health tech.
Well, let's start with obesity. Obesity is, pardon the pun, huge. I mean, huge.
Yeah, and if you want to stick a number on it, you're talking nearly affecting probably about 1/3 of the population.
I saw that number. Is that
yeah.
Now, is that a latter day, version of obesity? Somebody who's a few pounds over, or is there a well-defined meaning in your head to obesity?
So now really you're asking the question of BMI. So, BMI has typically been used to categorize people into either overweight or classes of obesity, class 1, 2, etc. And unfortunately, it's the only metric that we really have at the moment to stratify people into different classes. Now, the reason we've called ourselves BeyondBMI is because that is a slightly outdated approach. It doesn't tell you that much about your health. And really, when you're talking about the disease of obesity, you're talking about what is excess fat accumulation doing to your body? What are the diseases that it's causing and contributing to? And so that's why the conversation really needs to move on to how do we help people to gain health through weight loss? And that's really, I suppose, the premise and the purpose of us setting up BeyondBMI.
Well, the other purpose is it's a business. And that's why you're really here, because it could be a big, maybe global business, because that's what you're hoping for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obesity is costing Ireland about 2 billion annually. So if you want to put that into kind of context, the Children's Hospital is estimated to cost about 2 billion. This is an annual. So we could have one a year. You could have one a year, and that's not going away. In fact, that's the trajectory is going up. And that's only direct costs. Indirect costs, we're talking more like 6.5 billion. What that looks like is a cost of approximately 1,500 per capita.
Euro,
and estimate,
1,500 euro.
Yeah. And that's probably about 1.5 to 2% of our GDP. I mean, what a cost.
You know all the numbers.
What a cost.
It's huge.
So, I mean, talking about business, I mean, yes, obviously huge opportunity, but also can a government, can a state afford these increasing costs? And I think the obvious answer is no.
Okay, so you have a team, because it's not just you, and you are based in NovaUCD. I have to give them a big shout out, because they're doing great things down there.
Brilliant,
and your idea is to literally bring this to the world. Now, what is different about what you're doing? What's that guy in the UK, Michael such and such? He writes books about this and about fat in our bodies, and he's
Michael Mosley?
That's the guy, yeah.
He
bangs on about, because you said this to me the other day, about, is it grey fat or something like that? Is that what
I think,
or brown fat or some other fat?
Speaking about what makes us different, I mean, you just mentioned a book written by a doctor, but really what we're seeing is the industry has been dominated by lack of regulation. Anybody can bring out a book about diets, anybody can bring out a book about exercise, and God love consumers who are trying to navigate their way through all of these different options, not knowing who is coming from a place of information or misinformation. So what makes us different is we are medically led. We are based in the most up-to-date biology and science of obesity, meaning I didn't just come up with this science. I dove into the literature. I surrounded myself with professors of obesity, professors of metabolic medicine, and we looked at the literature and we said, what does it tell us about weight and obesity? And what it tells us is that obesity is not as much under our conscious control as we think. And so all of these people telling you eat less, move more, try harder, calorie count, have a bit more willpower. I mean, it sounds great, but it's not based on evidence, and that's why it doesn't work. And what we do is we offer you the latest science, which is we offer you access to doctors, dietitians, health coaches and nurses, many of whom, if not all of those, are regulated professions, meaning we can't just say whatever we feel like. And we bring this all together in a digital platform. Why? Because access is important. I don't care whether you're from Dublin, Tipperary, Cork. I think you should have the same access as somebody who is beside a tertiary, level hospital. So this is about access. This is about being medically led. And this is about having a team of experts. And also not being dogmatic about any one diet, because the evidence does not suggest that there's any one diet that works. So keto, if you want to do it. Veganism, fine. But actually, you cannot say there's any evidence to say one is better than the other.
You are effectively forming a club, because I have to sign up to this, isn't that right? And it's a 12-month contract kind of thing. Am I right so far? Mm-hmm. And then there's no promise at the end of it that I'm going to get any benefit out of it, is there?
Well, I mean, it's 12 months for a reason. Again, I'm going to hit back in on the science. This is 12 months based on scientific literature. And the literature we're talking about is the STEP trials. And these STEP trials are global, multinational, multi-center trials. And they have shown that when you combine certain medications, in this particular case, GLP-1 agonists, these are the blockbuster medications of obesity. When you combine those with diet, and specifically medical nutritional therapy, so not just any old advice, alongside behavioural change, you can expect to achieve, on average, 15% weight loss. Now, what does that mean or look like? Well, what that means for you is a reduction in your blood pressure, a reduction in your risk of cardiovascular disease, a reduction in your risk of cancers, 220 complications of obesity. So this is science-based, and that is why it's 12 months. Is there any guarantee of success? Well, we can change and we can alter the program based on achieving success for you. So there's no guarantees of anything. I might get hit by a bus. There's no guarantee. But I think really what we're trying to promote is that you get access to fact and not just a stab in the dark.
Except that many of the people who will be advising you naturally are keen to get that into, say, newspapers, into articles, into books themselves. So is there a kind of a rivalry within even the people who are advising you?
Well, you'll have to expand a bit on that.
It's what I'm just wondering about is if I sign up to you, obviously I'm going to have to pay you for the privilege, but I could also read my Irish Independent or my Irish Times and the health columns there and get pretty well-based advice, do I not? Or do you feel it's out of context?
This is where the diet industry has gone wrong again, because it's not just about advice. So obesity is a disease that affects the subconscious parts of your brain. So you and I are having a conversation right now, and you're not controlling your temperature. You're not going, I'm going to sit here at 37.5 degrees and that's it. Same thing with your blood pressure. So obesity is controlled in the subcortical, below the cortex part of our brains. And those part of our brains are not under our conscious control. So your appetite is not under your conscious control. So this is why the use of certain neurohormonally based medications, such as GLP-1s, they target those unconscious pathways. And that's why you lose weight. So you're not losing weight because you're thinking about it, because you're consciously reading an article. You're losing weight because we're changing the biology. So again, we're tapping into the root cause of the disease is an issue with biology. It's an issue with how our bodies are responding to the environment around us.
You were a doctor. You are a doctor.
I am.
But you were an ordinary doctor once upon a time. But you chose to go into business. Ken Faw, why?
Because I think there's a certain rawness about business that I really like. I like the fact that if I'm not doing something that people want, that I will not get paid to do that. It's a little bit different from other types of professions or jobs where you could turn up and you can work and still get paid. I like outcomes. I like results. I like being remunerated for achievement as opposed to just showing up. And I think that's what gets me excited about business. And also, I love the idea of reaching more people. So I can be a doctor and I can see one person and I can make an impact on one person's life. This gives me an opportunity to give and have an impact on thousands of people's, millions of people's lives. And I think that's really exciting.
It's exciting in a business, for sure. And you mentioned that, outside of Dublin or inside of Dublin or whatever, but you have much bigger ambitions than that.
Absolutely. I mean, obesity is not just a problem in Ireland. It's a problem globally. It's a problem in the UK. It's a massive problem. It's currently, I think the States are spending about 3% of GDP on obesity. So this is a global problem. And I think, again, that's probably what excites me as well, is the fact that if we can get this model up and running in Ireland, if we can show that we're delivering health outcomes, that actually there's an opportunity for us in the UK, there's an opportunity for us maybe in the States, and who knows where we'll end up.
But surely what you're doing is you're bringing best of class advice together. It's not a big barrier to entry. Others probably could, maybe already are doing this.
Absolutely. But that's the beauty of a big market, is that there's space.
I so agree with you.
There's space for everybody. And I think, ultimately as well, there's always different points of differentiation. Like, one thing for us is brand. And brand to me is almost the outward view of culture. So we specifically chose the name BeyondBMI because it represents what we stand for as a company, which is we're beyond judgment, we're beyond shame, we're beyond stigma. That's hugely important when you're talking about healthcare and disease. We're a company that are based in science and medicine. So yes, you can set up another weight loss company. There's lots of them. We all know of them. But are they based in science? Like, no, they're not. So that's a huge differentiator.
Would they argue with you about that, would they?
I'm sure they would. But, you know, it's like somebody arguing with a mathematician about maths on the page. Like, you know, when it comes to outcomes and results, it's like, you know, we can have a philosophical debate and I don't know who will win that. But I think when it comes to on the numbers debate, no, there's not much competition there.
Now, you have raised over £500,000, but you are going to go again because, you know, to fund the ambitions. What are you going to do? When are you going to do it? And how much do you need? And who do you need? Who do you want the money from? All of the usual questions.
Wow. So, God, there was about 6 questions in one.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, when we'll be looking for money kind of around September, October of this year. I'll probably start the fundraising process a lot earlier than I did last time, maybe February, March.
Because you found out it takes time.
Because I found out it takes a lot of time. And also the fit has to be right. Like, I was so lucky that the guys, and I'm going to say guys because it was all men, that got involved with our business. Like, I mean, our CLN sheet was 2 pages. There was no messing. It was just really great people. And I know a lot of founders can't say the same thing. So I'm looking for that calibre. I'm looking for people who want to get the job done. Brilliant guys at CKS, close the deal for us. I'd like to see that happen again. So I'm going to go out there, just chat to lots of different people. I'd love, obviously, where possible, value add. So people who are maybe interested in obesity can bring something, whether it's access to maybe marketing expertise or access to networks in other countries. You know, looking for smart money and health tech as well, background scaling health tech businesses.
If you raise money, how much money do you need? Or how much would you like?
I'm not going to answer that exactly yet.
That's okay.
But it's going to be in the millions.
In the millions, because it is what is termed a land grab.
Exactly.
Because you just have to go wild on the hiring and just try to grab whatever the market is.
But I've looked at some of my competitors already, and you know, some of them who are growing very fast. And they're coming up with, you know, this era of fast growth at any expense. I don't know if it's going to last. I mean, when I go onto Glassdoor and I look at the reviews from the employees working there, like they're you know, beep poor. They're really not good.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you can build a sustainable business off the back of the fact that nobody actually really wants to work there, thinks it's a good place to work. So we put a huge amount of effort into the caliber of people that we hire, the culture that we set. And I really hope that as we scale that we can actually continue that, and that we can, you know, and you know yourself, it's like having one rotten apple. It's like you have to be conscious about who you bring into your business early on, because it'll just scale. And, you know, so, yeah, kind of going off on a tangent there, but there you go.
I'm delighted that you said that, because I think it's a really, really important thing, is scaling at all costs. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
As you correctly say, you can.
Somebody loses along the way.
Correct, and particularly the business probably, and the business's ethos if it had one to start with. So, what you have now, by joining us in the studio, you have joined Team GBS, that great business show, and we normally ask people about that in what can Team GBS do for you? Are there connections that you need? Is there banking sources that you could use? What would you like us to do for you?
I mean, it's already great just being on the podcast and having your listeners hear about us, know who we are. You know, I think, I suppose, access to any investors, you know, people who are interested in this area and, you know, are thinking about putting their money somewhere into a growing market, into a good team. So I suppose that's always helpful.
The second final question, because I always have a final question, but the second final question, the size of the market, you say it's growing now. Thinks if you were successful, you could be the author of your own downfall, because you are getting rid of obesity. One day we won't be obese. There was a time when we were not obese. It's actually a function of successful economies. We actually are the first generation ever to have, no, I won't say the word too much, but we have sufficiency in food.
Well, I mean, have we cured cancer? I think we've only just found out there's more than one cancer and there's substratifications, and so I don't see that happening. Also, we're in the midst of a problem that I don't think will be fully solved even within my lifetime.
So there's plenty of growth in it as a business.
There is. And I think as well as where you have people, you have desires for optimization as well. Like, I mean, my sister, she works for a Formula One team in an engineering role. And
does she want to come on? I'll get her on.
So she's you know, she works in the area of performance. You know, so they're always looking at how does the aerodynamics of the wings work? How does the ergonomics work? How does the human behavior, the driver behave? And, you know, but when you hear about actually the teams, the humans behind all this, they're not necessarily performing themselves as well as they could because they're so busy and so focused on the cars. So I could even see, you know, opportunities for us to improve the performance of other people through our business. You know, I just think where there's an opportunity to add or enhance your life, I think there'll always be an opportunity within healthcare, and we can just simply move, you know, shift left, as they say, you know, move from the treatment of obesity to the prevention of obesity. So there's lots of scope and room.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
Final question. Always we ask our guests, who would you hire in a heartbeat?
God. Steve Jobs, but he's dead.
Well, small problem.
Yeah. Well, we're actually looking for a marketing exec at the moment. So somebody who is passionate about healthcare, passionate about, you know, the language that you use and the way you speak to people, and, you know, redefining how we market and how we speak to these people. I think that would be absolutely great if we could find someone in a marketing role.
But is there a name?
A name?
Yeah. Maybe you don't. What about your sister?
No, she's too cool. She's doing her own thing. No, I don't. I'm sorry. I don't have a particular name of somebody who I'd look.
Okay, but anybody who's in marketing who wants to get into a high growth, possibly world beating, possibly huge, you're getting into the ground floor.
That's it.
And the person to talk to is Dr. Harriet Treacy.
That's it, yeah.
And you will find her at BeyondBMI, and they are based in NovaUCD, UCD campus, Belfield, Dublin 4. How about that?
That's it. Thanks for having me on.
Harriet, thanks so much. I think we might have you back in again. And if you want to come back in with your sister, love to have you.
Very good.
Do make sure to come back to us to tell us when you are up at your 100,000th person and your 1 millionth person, etc. Fingers crossed. I think you'll do it. Harriet Treacy, thank you for joining us on That Great Business Show.
Done Deal Motors is home to Ireland's largest range of new and premium used cars. That's why you'll find cars from Audi and BMW dealerships on Done Deal. Are you looking for a 7-seater to accommodate your growing family? Maybe you're after a luxury saloon to make a statement. We have the car for you. You'll also find Ireland's largest range of electric cars to help you make the switch. Visit donedeal.ie today to start the search for your next car.
Want to increase sales, reduce overheads, and provide customers with a better service? Then use Big Red Web, the easiest way to develop and maintain your website. It gives you powerful business reporting, digital marketing, and automatically integrates with the award-winning Big Red cloud accounting software. It's a game changer for SME businesses. It's so good, the government gives you a €2,500 grant towards it. Big Red Web, e-commerce made simple. BigRedCloud.com/web.
All That Great Business Show advertisers are Team GBS approved. Back them.
Now, the fact that you spent €11, €12, €13, whatever on snacks in Tesco, or that you had 3 takeaway meals delivered by Deliveroo in the last month may not appear consequential to you. But to companies like Google and Facebook, or Meta as they like to confuse us with, that information is quite literally gold dust, because that is the data that has made them, in just a couple of decades, some of the world's wealthiest companies. And here's the rub. They have taken your data. Yes, that data rightly belongs to you. And an Irish startup, UnBanx, UnBanx, that's UnBanx, caught my attention when I saw they're trying to give you back ownership and share profits of using your banking data if you're willing to sign up with them. They say they're starting with banking data, but they do have plans to expand already. Sadly, this data won't make you very rich, but at least you might get a free pizza or a pair of Nike runners out of it. And the company UnBanx says that if you want to, they will only sell your data to what they call ethical companies. So, all the way from his HQ in beautiful Kinsale in County Cork, Alan McDonald, founder and CEO of UnBanx, joins me here in our Dundrum studio. Alan McDonald, welcome to That Great Business Show. UnBanx, why, who, what is it?
So UnBanx is a platform we've set up to essentially allow people to gain from the value of their own data. So at the moment, especially with your transaction data, your banking data, that is generally collected by banks and card companies. They anonymize it, they collate it, and they sell the data and sell insights on the data and take the profit for themselves.
And there is a quoted company that actually just lives on that amount of information or that information that they are harvesting.
There's many, many companies who just live on this, selling these data sets and selling insights on these data sets. But what we want to do is we want to take all of that value that they are creating for themselves and allow people who actually create and own that data to benefit from it themselves.
And you are the beneficiary yourself of EU legal changes.
Yeah, so there's two main areas of regulation that we're using. The first being open banking. So this allows anybody to essentially port or give their transaction data, so their spending history, to us. This is done via APIs, and it's mandated by a lot of countries around the world, which means the banks have to do it. So the banks can't say to us, hey, stop doing that. We don't like it.
Can I just cut across you there? Because somebody listening to you, first of all, they won't know what an API is and, harvesting information and all. How granular can you get in terms of what, say, Conal O'Moran is doing with his bank, that he's buying, 3 newspapers a day, 2 bags of sweets, and a partridge and a pear tree. Can you get right down to that kind of stuff?
It depends on your source. So with open banking APIs, at the moment, you get the transaction in the shop. So if you went into McDonald's and bought a Big Mac meal and some chicken tenders or something, you would only see the value spent at McDonald's. You wouldn't see the item, the SKU level. There are ways to get that, digital receipts, etc., which we'll bring in at some stage. And maybe within the open banking legislation, that will also come in to get SKU level. But at the moment, it's the transaction value in the shop.
And that is a brand new term to me, a SKU level. Does that mean when you go micro?
Product level, essentially, yeah.
So you were sitting, because we had a chat beforehand, you were sitting in where? In the UK. Sorry, you were sitting in Cork working for a UK company when you thought up this idea that you and your cousin, you could make a few quid out of this, because you were talking to me about passive income. Anybody who goes and gives or sells their data to you can earn a passive income. The only thing that they want to know is how much, because unfortunately, it's not going to be a lot.
It mightn't make you rich, but the way we think about it is getting your fair share. So this money, this value is being created, and the banks or card companies are taking it where it's rightfully ours. So that's why we're building UnBanx, essentially. The way I like to explain it to people is that it's like if you're a musician and you put a song on Spotify. It's like asking Spotify, how much will I get paid for putting a song on Spotify? It depends on how often the song is streamed and how many requests there are for it. It's the same with your banking data. You put your banking data on the UnBanx platform by linking your bank account via these open banking APIs, which we make it easy to do. Then companies will come to us and request data on certain cohorts of people, demographics. So they might say, I want data on males aged 35 to 40. I would fall into that bucket. So then my data would be picked out and given. Also, you could do it based on spending history. So, for instance, a company might come and say, we want data on people who spend 20 euros or more at Starbucks last month. Again, I would fall into that bucket. So then my data would also be sold in that case. So there are two examples of where my data would be sold. So that's how it will work. It really depends on how often it's requested. And we take a cut of the sell, so we're not essentially buying your data from you and selling it on. We're taking 30% of the sale. So we essentially pass the majority of revenue back to the users.
Call me cynical, but how do I know that it's my data that you're using? You'll tell me, no, we're using Mary and Johnny's data over there. So how can I be sure that I'm getting the 70% that you're selling it for? If you're getting €1, that I'm getting my 70 cent.
So for this, what we're going to do, because the whole thing about UnBanx is that it's going to be transparent, so people trust it. There's a big trust element here. That our plan is to make all the buying transactions public. So as you said at the start, you can opt to sell your data to ethical companies. You can also sell it to non-ethical companies if you want. The control is in your hands. So say if a fossil fuel company comes in to buy a data set and you fall into that data set, you can in your profile say, fossil fuel companies from me are out. And then your data doesn't actually go to them.
But what I'm actually asking is, how do you say transparency, but I can't look into the back end of your machinery to see that I'm getting paid for, you say that you're not using my data, but you could be selling my data, couldn't you?
Well,
I am being very cynical now. You wouldn't even think. These are bad thoughts in my head. Yeah. You're a good person.
That is about the transparency. So any transaction of data that we sell, we would list what demographics they've asked for. So age 35 to 40, and except they fall into this. So if you fell into that category, then that will correlate with a payment you would have received, which you'd get notified in the app. A payment has been made for your data.
And what I loved, besides the idea behind this, which is immediately when I saw it, I said, that's clever, but it's particularly clever, and there's nothing wrong with this at all. It's particularly clever for you because it is about volume, and you are about to go big looking for volume, correct?
Yeah, so it's a volume game with data sets. Everything is in the aggregate. So your transaction data yourself isn't actually worth anything, like you as one person. But your transaction data in a set of 10,000 people with similar demographics, then you gain insights, then that's where the value is. So we need to get volume. Our first goal is 15,000 linked bank accounts. That's the smallest size that we can start selling a data set. We launched on Tuesday morning, and last I checked before I came in here on Thursday, we had 1,200 people who had connected their bank accounts. So it's gone pretty well so far. And we hope to hit 15,000 by about somewhere June time. And
one of the things that probably makes some sense to me is the kind of people who would sign up for this will be in a younger demographic. No? You're saying no?
No.
Is that not true, no? I would have thought, there might, I can tell you this much, is slightly older people wouldn't even bother, in my estimation, but maybe I'm completely wrong. You know what you're talking about, and I don't. Well,
at the start, we had kind of the same theory. We found that to be false, certainly from our user base so far. Our user base so far are people who are really into rewards apps, kind of couponing, being able to refer people in and be able to get points and small rewards. And they are generally what we found to be over 40. So we haven't tapped into the kind of, I suppose, student or, 20 to 30 market yet. We have a marketing plan for that. But just from our launch, we found it's actually an older demographic.
That's really interesting. I have to sit down and think of how I could tap into that myself. So one of the things that you want to do now is to go marketing, and that means that you need to fundraise. What are the plans?
So the plan is to, now that we've launched, to focus on fundraising. So we're going to go out into the market looking for about 1.5 million to essentially get us past that 15,000 users, which we'll get without it, but to really push on to 100,000 where we really can then sell bigger data sets, which are more valuable. And that new funding will also bring us to build our surveying platform, which people may make more money from. So with the surveying, similar to the Starbucks example I gave earlier about a company wanting data of people who spent money in Starbucks, they can also say, hey, we've got these 10 questions and we want to ask them to people who have spent more than 20 euros in Starbucks last month. And we found this very interesting for competitors, kind of checking out what their competitors' customers are doing. So say Costa Coffee might come to us and say, we want to survey Starbucks customers.
Now, if I give you my data, my banking data, will the banks not just take my data anyway without my permission, because that's what they do? Is that correct?
Well, it's not without your permission. So there's a few layers to this, really. What the banks and the card companies get generally is considered first-party data, as in the data that's created from you interacting with their service, which is perfectly fine. They need to have that to operate their product. The problem comes when they try and sell this first-party data. Selling first-party data is a shadowy area. It shouldn't be done.
It shouldn't because it's against the law, or shouldn't because it's not ethical?
So first of all, like when you signed up for your bank, when did you get a bank account first?
Very recently, I signed up from out of Ulster Bank into Bank of Ireland.
Okay, and did you look at the terms and conditions?
Not at all.
Exactly. And for me, like when I signed up for a bank account, it was during Freshers Week in DIT in 2003 or something. Didn't look at any, there probably wasn't any terms and conditions regarding data, but since there's been no communication to me about any terms and conditions, so it's very unclear.
Oh, geez, don't encourage them.
But the point is that they have this data, and the way they can get away with it is they anonymize it enough that they can say it's not technically you, but it's still created and came from you. What we're doing and what we're selling is what's considered zero-party data or fair trade data, which means it's data that a user has proactively given to a brand like us in order to do something. So in our point of view, it's to sell it. So people, it's all transparent straight away. Anybody who signs up to the UnBanx platform is doing so in the knowledge that they're signing up to sell their data and to profit from it.
You're at 1,200 people. You want to get to 15,000 by June, 100,000 by whenever. There's no end to this, is there? There are, I don't know, is it 8 billion people in the world?
Yeah.
So if you have big ambitions, it's endless. It is vast.
Yeah, and the thing with this area, so there's a lot of new terms and regulations coming into this. There's essentially a thing called a data trust. This is the second piece of regulation I was talking about. This comes under what's called a Data Governance Act in the EU. And that essentially means that a data trust, which we are going to be, has a fiduciary duty to its members who sign up, and we act on their behalf to control and sell their data, or to allow them to control and sell their data. It's similar in a way to a labour union, where people come together to form, to have negotiating power against an employer. People for a data trust come together to have essentially to compete with a bank about selling data. So it's this new idea, and there'll be data trusts for everything. There'll be for your car, for your fitness, for your Netflix. This is going to be as common as having house insurance in 10 years. Everybody's going to be making small amounts of money off various data trusts. That's
really interesting.
Yeah.
Go back to the small amounts of money, because again, we are talking only about the early days. You're only talking about a couple of euro a month, are you? You might. I mean, would you even get the price of a pizza out of it over a month?
It depends what size pizza you're after.
What is that one? Apache pizza, all sizes, $9.99. Would I get €10 out of it over a month?
Again, it depends on if you do enough surveying.
Demographic. Surveys as well. So unfortunately, you said it was passive income, but it's passive doing surveys, which is not really passive.
There's passive and income. So the passive being essentially submitting your data to the data trust and it being sold. That's what we found from users so far will get you about somewhere between €3, €4, €5 a month, just passively.
Okay.
And then obviously surveying, you can get €1 or €2 every survey you do, and you can build it up and you can get your pizza at the end of the month.
Or if I wait long enough, 2 months will probably get me close to an Apache pizza.
Exactly.
Now, your 1.5 million raise, you obviously have an investment deck promising the earth. How quickly can you grow? Where will you grow? How will you grow? And how big will you be? What's the dream?
So ideally, the dream is to become the data trust for transaction data, for banking data initially.
In Ireland, or do you see the world
Oh no, so not in Ireland. So we haven't really, we've launched in Ireland because we've launched in the UK essentially. So the app is out in Ireland, but it's the UK where all our marketing and stuff is being spent. So, and the number of 15,000 is within the UK. So it has to be within a certain geolocation for the data to actually make sense. So that's within the UK.
So 15,000 out of 60 million is not a big ask at all, is it?
I mean, it depends on, like, connecting your bank account is a pretty decisive thing for a lot of people to do, because open banking, while it's maturing, some people are still unclear about what it is and bank account details and all of this. So
I would be worried.
Bit of an education piece there as well. But I mean, we're delighted with where we've got to so far in 2 days, 1,200 people. So we just need to continue that, and hopefully we'll hit our 100,000 by the end of the year, we're hoping, in the UK, again, in that geolocation. And then we expand to the EU. And we're slightly bound by countries that have open banking regulations. So other countries that is kind of mature in Canada, Australia, India, Brazil, as I mentioned. The US is a bit of a strange one because it's like 50 different countries with all the states.
Oh, no. Is that right? Each state has its own little banking licenses and
Well, I mean, there isn't
laws.
really any federal open banking in the US. It's been talked about, but it hasn't been done. But I mean, it's still possible, but it's to be able to plug into other countries' open banking regulations is a easier on-ramp for us.
You know, the last slide on your pitch deck, which is the one which tells people how much money they're going to make. What is that saying at the moment? How much money will you make and when?
How much money will a user make?
No, will you?
Oh, will we make? Well, I mean...
Lots and lots.
Lots and lots, hopefully. But I mean, when we win, the users win. So we only take a percentage of...
Oh, I appreciate that. But there is a dream. I mean, you're not doing this for the good of your health. This is a really, really good idea.
Yeah, well, we think it's a good idea, and we think but this future we see is where this is really prevalent. So the idea of data dignity is a new term, and it kind of is similar to data trust, that all of this data will be under trust and you'll be members of them. And this kind of ties into all the stuff you see around AI and ChatGPT and all of this kind of stuff, where all the data that's trained on, that data is from the sources come from humans. It needs to be trained on data by humans. And people need to get their fair share. So at the moment, nobody's getting money for all the data that ChatGPT was trained on. And this is what all this data dignity and data trust wants to change. And that's why the EU have a legislation about it, is that AIs in the future will be trained off particular data trusts, of a particular domain or of a topic. And the people who've provided data to that data trust get paid because of that. So that's where it's going, and that's what we see the future going at. I mean, and we hope to be able to make people some money.
And make yourself some money. But since you're not going to tell me how much money you're going to make, you might tell me whose money you would love to have on board. Who will you be pitching to? What kind of investors are you looking for?
So we're mainly pitching to investors in the UK at the moment, specifically in the fintech area, who have built or been involved in creating direct-to-consumer brands. So like NeoBanks, brands that you've had to get an app download onto somebody's phone, and that kind of... and
your NeoBanks are the Revoluts or the N52s and those kinds of companies?
Revolut, Monzo, Starling in the UK. Exactly, those type of companies.
Starling, which was headed by an Irish woman, wasn't it? I don't know
whether
she's still there. That's it? Yeah.
Well, she's not Irish, she's Welsh, but she was head of AIB.
Well, I knew there was some connection. Exactly. Final question you may know that we ask all of our interviewees. Who would you hire in a heartbeat?
This actually ties in.
Hooray, he did read the email. I was trying to hide
the highlighted text in the email. This actually ties into what we were just talking about. So there's one guy in particular that we are trying to engage with. His name is Jason Bates. And he was a co-founder of Monzo, which also, I don't know if you know the story of Monzo and Starling, but they were essentially the same bank at one stage. And then there was like a mutiny of sorts. And Anne Bowden continued and found Starling, and the rest of them went off and found Monzo. So this guy, Jason... one of the founders of Monzo, obviously that would be very helpful for us, but then went on to found, there's a fintech consultancy in the UK called 11FS, So they were separately two of my favourite brands, and then I seen this guy was a co-founder of both, and I thought he'd be an ideal guy to get on
And have you
board.
contacted him?
We've had it. We talked to him about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, good man. Good.
He's a busy guy.
So did he say no?
He didn't say no. He didn't say yes, no.
No, but as long as it's not a big fat no.
Yeah.
And even when they say no, it's kind of no,
not
kind
really
of
a no.
maybe no,
Yeah.
because you just twiddle around with your with the slides and you make it even more attractive. where there was 100 million, make it 1 billion, and that's the profit. Yeah. That is really, really interesting. Alan, please tell us when you reach your 15,000, when you reach your 100,000, and when you start making the millions, because you're now part of Team GBS. So thank you so much for joining us on That Great Business Show.
Want to increase sales, reduce overheads, and provide customers with a better service? Then use Big Red Web, the easiest way to develop and maintain your website. It gives you powerful business reporting, digital marketing, and automatically integrates with the award-winning Big Red cloud accounting software. It's a game changer for SME businesses. It's so good, the government gives you a €2,500 grant towards it. Big Red Web, e-commerce made simple. BigRedCloud.com/web.
De facto shaving oil, made only from natural oils. Nothing nasty on your skin.
All That Great Business Show advertisers are Team GBS approved. Back them.
And that is it from That Great Business Show, episode 125, where we deliver 45 minutes of business insights and inspiration. Thanks to our sponsor, donedeal.ie, the only place to find your next car, new or second-hand. And you should also follow our page on LinkedIn, where we will talk to you, but we also want you to sign up to our email updates on the website. That is thatgreatbusinessshow.com. Sign up there and we will send you emails, not just about the shows coming up, but we're going to have some more add-ons as well very, very soon. And LinkedIn is where you'll also find us if you would like to advertise with us. We record here at the Dublin South Podcast Studios, where Lee, my data for a pizza Brennan, is today's sound engineer. Later, Neil Horner will add his own digital insights to our podcast in post-production. This is the same team that brings you our second podcast series, Ireland's legal podcast, The Fifth Court. If you want your own podcast, we can make those podcast dreams come true. And don't forget to buy Business Plus magazine, where we now have a regular column all about the podcast. So from me, Conall O'Moran, Míle buchas for listening, agus slán tamil.